Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, so over the last few days, we've really seen Dillian White come out talking a lot more about the potential of him having a rematch with AJ. Now, bear in mind, Dillian White is someone who, over the years, pretty much since the loss, has always shown he's shown respect for AJ to some extent, but he's always, whenever the rematch has been kind of there, well, 2019 he flat out didn't want it. He said the money wasn't right, but he's always kind of wanted to go another way. You know, he's always kind of shied away from the rematch for the last few years. But lately, you know, over the last few days, he's been saying, you know, if AJ doesn't fight Usyk, or if he can't fight Fury, I'll jump in and fight him and stuff like that. Now, Eddie Hearn gave an interview with IFL a couple of days ago. Now, in that interview, he was discussing the situation with Top Rank, with Bob Arum, with, you know, the Fury age situation going pear-shaped. But interestingly, he did talk about Oleksandr Usyk, and he says that it's more than likely AJ will fight Usyk next, but they may go a separate direction, providing, you know, how contracts go, essentially. I think he said if they can't reach an agreement, they'll look elsewhere, and that would essentially mean you're vacating the belt. Because Usyk now has been mandatory for 2 years. Was it May or June 2019? He was made mandatory when he moved to heavyweight officially. So, because I think Team Usyk were actually, I think according to Frank Warren, I'm sure I read it somewhere, that Team Usyk were looking, even if AJ Fury happened, they were looking to launch some appeal against it. So if AJ doesn't fight Usyk next, that WBO title is gone. There's no way they're going to be able to let him have, you know, a voluntary or an in-between fight with someone else. I just can't see that happen. So Eddie Hearn was saying, unless they can reach an agreement, if they can reach an agreement, it's Usyk next. If they can't, they'll look elsewhere. Now you kind of look at that and you start to think, if you can't reach an agreement, purse bids. That's the whole concept of purse bids. If both parties can't come to an agreement, let's open it up and you bid for it. The highest bidder gets it. That's essentially how the purse bid works. So I don't understand why he's saying if we can't reach an agreement. You're hearing Dillian White and he's saying, oh, that's a possibility, Dillian White. He also mentioned the Andy Ruiz trilogy fight. I would like to see that at some stage. You know, maybe not now, but Dillian White seems to be the name that was, you know, kind of first on his lips. Now, I'm putting my promoter's hat on. I'm looking at this from Eddie Hearn. Now, I could be completely off with this, but hear me out. This might be, I'm not living inside his head. I don't know what he's thinking, but this might be how Eddie Hearn is looking at things, right? Eddie Hearn, I'm sure, wants to guarantee the AJ Fury fight. He wants AJ to come through whatever fight, and I'm sure deep down he wants Fury to come through, probably not unscathed, probably, you know, a bit damaged because it helps AJ, but he wants to make AJ Fury because he knows how much money is involved. He knows that they are going to eat for the rest of their lives off the back of that fight, so he wants to get that fight made. Now, let's look at it from this angle, right? You go in there with Oleksandr Usyk, and Usyk, I'm telling you now, is a risk to AJ. He's a risk to most heavyweights. You know, he brings a different style, brings a different skill set that a lot of these guys aren't used to, and he could offset the apple cart. Eddie Hearn has seen what happens when you go and put AJ in there with guys. He's seen with Dillian White. When you put guys in there with someone, especially in heavyweight boxing, as I've said before, strange things can happen. AJ could lose. Alright? Now, Oleksandr Usyk is no longer with Matchroom. Alright, that deal went, I think, at the start of this year. You know, I think I even done a video about it. So if Usyk was to fight AJ, he'd be fighting essentially as a once-off deal with Matchroom. Maybe Eddie Hearn would try and swing something in there, but essentially that's what it would be. He's also a mandatory. Now, a mandatory, for the most part, I've not been enjoying when I see this, and I know Eddie Hearn did it with Pulev, and I don't think it's a very good thing to do, but sometimes mandatories, if they're insistent upon it, the promoter might stick a rematch clause in there. For the most part, that's not the case. I mean, the whole advantage of being a mandatory is that there is no rematch clause. So let's say Usyk is coming to Matchroom for a once-off fight against AJ. He's got no rematch clause, and say he beats AJ. Just say he beats him. Well, he takes WBO and all the other titles, and he's gone. And he can make that undisputed fight with Tyson Fury if Tyson Fury gets through Wilder. But guess what? Eddie Hearn won't be a part of it because he's not going to be promoting Usyk unless he sticks something in the contract Don King style, what he used to do in the 90s. There's no rematch clause, so AJ can't re-ratch it like he did with Ruiz. Usyk is free to do what he wants. He can have the fight with Fury. Fury becomes undisputed, or Usyk becomes undisputed, either or. But Eddie Hearn ain't part of that, right? Eddie Hearn might look at that and think, you know what, we don't need to. I'm sure he's confident in AJ, but he might look at that and think, we don't need to risk that. For one title, we don't need to risk that. The possibility of that happening for one title, probably not. And I think maybe when he says, unless it's, you know, what we agree, you know what I was saying there at the start, where he was saying, if we run into issues with the contract, we can look elsewhere. I wonder if he's looking at doing a rematch clause. Or I'm wondering if he's looking at saying, right, you can fight AJ next, you know, we'll fight him for X amount, but it has to be a 2-fight deal to Matchroom, or a 3-fight deal to Matchroom, or something, you know, something like that. Maybe he's trying to, I'm not saying this is the case, but you never know. He could be trying to sneak something in there just for his own peace of mind. Because he's seen what happened with Ruiz. And yes, they had a rematch clause in it. Imagine Ruiz fought AJ as a mandatory back in 2019. And there was no rematch clause. Ruiz could still be champion now. Alright? Now, Eddie Hearn might look and think, you know what, for one title, one WBO title, do we need it? Because let's face facts. AJ Fury, if it happens this year or early next year, it is whatever kind of cake you like. It's that kind of cake. Undisputed is just the cherry on top. We're still going to buy that fight. We're still going to be absolutely singing praises for that fight if it's, you know, for the WBA, IBF and WBC. If it's not for Undisputed, it's nice, don't get me wrong, and I personally would love to see an Undisputed heavyweight champion. Hasn't been one since 99 when Lennox Lewis did it. But that fight isn't going to be so, it doesn't hinge on Undisputed. As I said, whatever cake you want, this is the cherry on top, which is Undisputed. But it doesn't need it. Now, Eddie Hearn could look at Dillian White and think, do you know what? It's in-house. Yous are both big names. Yous both draw a good bit of money in the UK. I could put that fight on. Maybe Sky would do it. Maybe DAZN would do it in America. I don't know what way they do it. But they could do that fight. They can build it because they have history. And Usyk, he is in the draw. It's safe to say he's not. Dillian White, AJ, that will sell. They have history. That can sell. Dillian White, I'm sure, has a bit more confidence now that he actually has avenged the rematch, because at the end of the day, he would go into a rematch not knowing. If he went into the AJ fight in 2019, imagine going into a rematch over someone who knocked you out not knowing how you'd cope. Well, he has that experience now from the Povetkin fight, so maybe he will be a bit more confident going in there with AJ, because, you know, it's very seldom you see fighters come back from that. You know, look at Mike Tyson in his first fight with Holyfield, in his second fight with Holyfield. Look at the eye contact. It was non-existent in the second fight. You know, it takes a lot to get over these losses. Now, that fight would draw. Alright, you would imagine, and I would make AJ favourite, but I'm sure Eddie Hearn is thinking, do you know what? Dillian White caught AJ in the second round with that left hook in 2015. He's improved since then. Imagine he catches AJ with another left hook and he takes AJ out. Well, that will be a voluntary, so you definitely have a rematch clause in it. Alright, so you could run it back. It might hold up situation with Fury AJ for Undisputed, or for, you know, AJ Fury, not for this, for Undisputed. But you could run it back, get your belt back. Or, say there is a rematch clause and AJ decides, do you know what, I want time to rest, I'm going to hold off on the rematch. Okay, we'll make Dillian White versus Tyson Fury as a unification. Hey, you're still part of it. It's still a big fight. You know, Fury versus Dillian White, it's still a big fight. You know, maybe AJ would go and, you know, target the WBO title. And then, you know, AJ, you know, fights Usyk if he has that title. He beats Usyk, and you can make it. You see what you're thinking. You're looking at every kind of avenue. You're looking at every outcome. Whereas if you just look at the Usyk fight in a nutshell, you think it's a risky fight. It's a mandatory, and if AJ loses, he could go and do an undisputed fight with Tyson Fury. I ain't going to be part of it because I don't have a long-term deal with Usyk. If he fights AJ, it's probably going to be in DAZN, but that's a once-off, you know. If they don't want to sign, you know, a multi-fight deal, they don't have to. If they don't want to sign a rematch clause as a mandatory, they don't have to. You know, I hate seeing that when that happens. Look at Eddie Hearn when Pulev was the mandatory. Was there any of this talk? It was just get him in, get him out of there. Because none of us really gave Pulev a shot, let's be honest. I didn't, I know most people didn't either. With Usyk, I pick AJ to win, but Usyk is live, and he's dangerous. So, for me, I wouldn't be shocked to see AJ vacate that WBO title and maybe take on a Dillian White, because, as I said, You look at it and you weigh up your options. You're a promoter, you're looking at every avenue. You know, it's all well and good, and I'm sure Eddie Hearn does have the utmost amount of faith in AJ. But I'm sure he had the utmost amount of faith in AJ beating Ruiz the first time. But that didn't happen because things happen. You know, if we all knew, if every human being knew how everything would go, well, it'd be a fairly boring life, wouldn't it? You know, that's one thing I love about life and everything in general, not just boxing, everything, is unknown. Surprises here and there. You know, best believe things have happened to me overnight that I've just been like, what the hell, how did that happen? Because if everything was straightforward the way we think it's going to be, you're going to live a fairly boring life, simple as. You know, so maybe that's the way Eddie Hearn's looking at it. He's looking at it and thinking, you know, AJ could do this, but there's always putting this and this and this. So he's looking to just cover all avenues. So me personally, I think that is what maybe he's looking at. So he wants to make sure that he's part of either a unification, you know, with AJ and Fury, or an undisputed fight in general. He wants to make sure that he is part of that. And if Usyk fights AJ, and he's no rematch clause, and it's a once-off deal to fight on Matchroom or DAZN or wherever it is, and he beats AJ, well, we can still have the undisputed, but Eddie Hearn, he ain't going to be part of it. Ain't going to be part of it. So maybe he's looking at that and thinking, you know what, even if AJ fights Dillian White, and let's say he loses, I have a rematch clause, and he's a Matchroom fighter. I mean, I'm all good. So maybe he's looking at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of my thought process on that? I don't often do that on videos, give kind of my in-depth thought process. Yeah, I give my 2 cents, but I don't really go in deep like that, where I'm thinking, you know, this scenario about this scenario. Let me know what you thought. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I killed a bit of time, however long this goes on for. I hope you're having a good Friday. I really do need to get back doing the live streams. I missed them. I've just been busy, drive to a different county the odd night, you know how it is, and yeah, I've just been busy. So hopefully maybe we'll get back and we'll do one tonight. We'll see. Can't promise, but hopefully we'll see. For now, lads and lassies, I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great Friday. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you're new to the channel. #GMansRocks, all that good stuff. Lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.